Okay, so today we're going to dig into something really cool. It's kind of like a secret origin story, but not for a hero, for a method. We're going to uncover the forgotten blueprint that one of the greatest comic writers of all time, Alan Moore, created long before his most famous stuff. And it all starts with a hero you've probably honestly never even heard of, Captain Britain.
I mean, when you say Alan Moore, these are the books that pop into your head, right? These are the absolute titans, the works that just completely ripped up the rule book for superhero comics and then rebuilt the whole thing into something smarter, deeper, and way more complex. These comics are why we call him a master of the medium, no question.
But what if I told you the entire foundation for all of that genius was laid down years earlier, tucked away in the pages of a pretty obscure British comic? See, the story of Captain Britain isn't just some random piece of comic book trivia. It's the essential case study, you could even call it a parable, for how a genius learns to be a genius.
Now, to really get why Moore's work here was so revolutionary, we first have to understand the world it came from. So let's jump back in time to the early days of Marvel's UK division. It was this weird, amazing place where big ambitions, tiny budgets, and a really unique take on creator rights all smashed together to create this perfect storm for something new.
So picture this. Marvel UK kicks off in '72, and for the most part, they're just reprinting American comics for a British audience. But by '76, they decide they need their own hero, and bam, Captain Britain is born. Now at first he's kind of designed by the US office, but by '79, British writers and artists are in charge. And then in '81, he gets a huge redesign. And that right there, that's the moment the character starts to get interesting.
And you can't overstate how important that makeover was. The original design was, well, let's call it quaint. It felt very American. But the new look after 1981, it was a deliberate move to make a hero who looked more powerful, more modern, and, actually British. It was basically a warning shot that things were about to get a lot more serious.
And the whole creative environment there was the secret sauce. You had this editor, Des Skin, who was dead set on making original stories. You had tiny budgets, which meant you had to get really creative. And here's the kicker. The writers and artists actually kept the rights to their work, which was almost unheard of. So you have this mix of ambition, limitations, and freedom. And that's the perfect incubator for some really raw talent.
And right into that perfect storm walked two young creators who are about to flip the whole table over. This wasn't just another creative team change. Oh no, this was the start of a partnership that would become legendary.
All right, if you're going to remember one thing, remember this number. Marvel Superheroes issue 387. This is ground zero. This is the exact moment that a young, hungry writer named Alan Moore, along with this incredible up-and-coming artist named Alan Davis, get the keys to Captain Britain. And almost the first thing they did? They decided to burn the whole house down.
And this, right here, is the heart of the story. See, Moore didn't just want to write adventures for Captain Britain. He wanted to take him apart, screw by screw, to see what was inside. And to do that, he needed to create a villain that was unlike anything comics had ever seen before.
I want you to meet the Fury. This is not your typical villain with a grand plan. The Fury is more like a concept. It's a relentless, adaptive, cybernetic thing, and its only job, its only purpose for existing, is to hunt down and kill superheroes. It's not evil, not really. It's a force of nature. It is an unstoppable plot device aimed like a missile right at the hero.
And this is it. This is the playbook Moore invented right here in these pages. Step 1. He warps reality. He introduces this dark, twisted, alternate universe where all the heroes are being hunted. Step 2. He unleashes the unstoppable. He throws the Fury at the Captain, an enemy that he literally cannot defeat. Step 3, and this was mind-blowing for the time, he kills the hero. And I don't mean a fake-out death, a brutal, violent, he's gone kind of death. And then finally, step 4, he rebuilds him from the ashes. He resurrects the Captain, but he comes back different. He comes back conceptually stronger and way more compelling than he was before.
But here's the absolute gut punch. The story doesn't just stop there. Captain Britain gets brought back to life and returns to his own reality, the main Marvel universe. But he brings the monster home with him. The Fury follows, and suddenly the stakes are not just personal anymore. This apocalyptic killing machine is now loose in the world our hero was supposed to protect.
And what is so incredible, so fascinating about all this is that it wasn't just a cool trick he did once. This whole process, this deconstruction and renewal, it became the structural foundation for almost all of Moore's most famous comics. Captain Britain, this forgotten little book, was his laboratory.
I mean, look at this. It lays it all out. That whole technique of tearing a character down to their absolute studs and then rebuilding them from scratch, that's the entire soul of Miracle Man. Those massive, reality-bending, apocalyptic storylines, well, that's the engine that powers his incredible run on Swamp Thing. He even does it again later, reconstructing the whole idea of Superman in his book Supreme. Every single time, the DNA of that idea can be traced right back here.
And that's really the magic trick, isn't it? He never just threw away what came before. He took the character's history, all of it, and used it as the raw material for his deconstruction. He'd break them down, but he'd respect the continuity, and then he'd build them back up into something bigger, better, and just more interesting.
And we absolutely have to talk about the art, because this is a story about two creators hitting their stride together. You can literally watch Alan Davis's artwork go from being a little rough in the early issues to this absolutely confident, masterful style by the end. And as they got more comfortable, Moore started writing less dialogue. He started trusting Davis to carry the story with his images. The pages get cleaner, more powerful. It is just a beautiful thing to see a partnership like that evolve in real time.
So the big question is, if this is so important, why isn't it mentioned in the same breath as Watchmen? Well, the truth is, its legacy is a little complicated. The ending was a bit messy, but that doesn't take away from just how brilliant the run is.
The reality of why Moore left the book had nothing to do with the story. It was all real-world stuff. You know, late paychecks from the publisher, nasty legal threats from Marvel over his other big project, Miracle Man, and frankly, he was becoming a huge deal in the US with Swamp Thing. He was just being pulled in a new, bigger direction.
But here's the thing. Even with the slightly messy ending, the story that Moore and Davis told is solid. It's a complete, powerful, and absolutely fantastic piece of work. When you read it, you're watching two guys on the verge of becoming total legends, just firing on all cylinders. It is not a footnote. It is a self-contained masterpiece.
And that kind of leaves us with one last thought, right? This whole story, this parable of Captain Britain, it shows us how genius is really made. Not always out in the spotlight, but sometimes in these weird, forgotten corners of an industry. It really makes you wonder, how many other blueprints, how many other secret origins of great ideas are just sitting out there hidden in the footnotes, waiting for us to find them?